Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the very top of the show, I have some music news items for you.
Bwah, bwah, bwah.
So, the big news of the week, probably the biggest music news of the year, maybe. Are you familiar with Australian novelty band The Beards?
Only because of you. You told Charlie, remember, and sent him some of his stuff.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the Beards are a band that sing exclusively songs about beards. They've released 5 albums, something like that. Every single song that they've written is about beards, the virtues of having a beard, how great it is having a beard. If you don't have a beard, you're no good, etc., etc. And they were been in existence for 10 years or more, and they were sort of straddling that line of a signed act out there playing big venues and what I do. They were sort of straddling the line between the two. They'd released albums, they'd done a lot of international touring, but as you know, music at that level is very hard to make money, and it's the sort of thing you have to commit to make it a full-time job, but there probably wasn't the money coming in. So anyway, they decided in 2019 that they were going to split up. That was going to be the end of the Beards. And in fact, over the COVID lockdown, they posted their last ever gig ever, which originally was only available on a USB thumb drive in the shape of a beard comb that was available from their online store.
See?
Yeah, so they posted it on YouTube as a gift to the fans, saying, you know, when we were telling everyone to stay home, brush your beard and watch our last concert. I think that's exactly what they said. Anyhow, out of nowhere this week, they announced, well, they haven't really announced that they're reforming, but there is a venue called Jive. And now this particular venue is in Adelaide in Australia. And apparently they played their first ever gig there years and years and years ago. And this venue is celebrating its 20th anniversary. And it says, we did our first ever gig at Jive. This is from their Facebook page. And it's come here and see some and have some drinks with us and support the iconic venue on World Beard Day, not National Beard Day, World Beard Day. Tickets are selling fast. Hopefully we'll see you there, and don't forget to grow a beard. Now, it doesn't say that they're going to reform, but I went on the website for this venue, and it says, join us on stage. They've got a band called The Wanderers, the Trafalgar Special Patrol, no one I've ever heard of, and one very, very, very special guest band to be announced. So to me, the Beards are getting back together.
I mean, they're at least going to do some type of short-term thing to monetize off of this. Even if it's a few shows and a few smiles, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's a long-term strategy, but they're going to try to monetize this.
Well, I hope so. I mean, the thing is about the Beards, I mean, it's the same kind of idea as Weird Al, parody artists. But the thing is about the music from the Beards, it's really good. They were in a band called the Dairy Brothers before that, and their music's pretty good. But somehow with the Beards, even if you take the comedy beard lyrics off, it's really good music. My favorite track of theirs is You Should Consider Having Sex with a Bearded Man, from the album Having a Beard is the New Not Having a Beard. And I think if you took the comedy lyrics off, it would still be a really catchy, great rock song.
So because my husband is who my husband is, Tim felt the need to introduce him to this band, and I have now heard quite a few of their songs. And it was right up Charlie's alley. He loves a good parody, so I agree with Tim. I think at their core, that's what works, though, for Weird Al, too. At the core, he's a musician. The funny is on top of the musicianry. If they don't have the musical skills, it's kind of like when a writer writes a book and they break like grammatical law rules and different things. I almost said law, like it's a law, but rules and different things like that. Like, you know, to put an accent in or to influence something. They have to know the rules before they can break the rules, because you have to know the rules of grammar before you can do that properly without it coming across as you don't know what you're doing. And that's how I think a good parody artist should work.
Absolutely. But I mean, I highly recommend checking out the whole album. Having a beard isn't you not having a beard. It's on Spotify. And the thing is that I bought it up the other day because I read this article and I thought, well, I haven't heard the Beards for a while. And I actually have that album on CD, but I was out in the car and I thought, I'm going to listen to it. And when I got home, on Spotify, it tells you how many monthly listens an artist has. And a lot of like niche indie artists don't have a lot of listens. It's a few hundred listens or 1,000 listens. The Beards have like 27,000 monthly listens. I don't know. I was just very happy to see that.
They're just like you're right. They're in that weird limbo land between not like super famous and, well, not like even famous, but right below famous and right above average, local band.
Absolutely. But I'm very excited. Maybe when this concert happens, there'll be some footage or photos or something. So I'll be eagerly seeing if the Beards did reform. And maybe hopefully their beards will be even more mighty than before.
Well, and if they're listening to this podcast, as we would assume, and Tim should possibly send this to them and be like, hey, we gave you a shout out. You can come on the show and promote your new world tour or whatever it is.
They would not be happy with me for not having a beard, and they would not be happy with you for not having some kind of like fake beard affair. They don't care. Everyone should have a beard. Children, women, it doesn't matter. In the beards world, everything should be bearded. Dogs, cats.
We can put little fake beards on this, like the videos. We put a little filter after the fact, Tim, and just put little fake beards on us. Anyway, all right. Well, do you have any other music news, or would you like me to tell them about what happened on this day in music?
Well, I have two other items.
Okay.
The first one, sadly, is we had to say goodbye to Bernie Marsden this week. Now, Bernie Marsden was one of the original guitar players in Whitesnake. Now, what many people don't know, most people think of Whitesnake as that 80s MTV era band with like the big production and the big hair. And, you got Tawny Kitaen in the video cavorting over a Jaguar sports car and all that kind of stuff. That's what people think Whitesnake is. And certainly when they toured, they had Steve Vai on guitar and Adrian Vandenberg and all those kind of shredders of the day. But Whitesnake originally was a blues band, like a blues rock band based in the UK, based in the north of England. And the original lineup was Mickey Moody on guitar and Bernie Marsden on guitar. And a lot of those songs that from the big MTV era were actually reworked from the original sort of blues rock thing that they had going on early on. I mean, like Fool for Your Loving, Bernie Marsden co-wrote that.
Yeah, well, what's really interesting you say that is I felt guilty of this too in a way, because I would have only, like in the last few years, did I find out they're not American. I don't know why I would have, just because of my perspective on like that 80s hair band thing, I assumed they were American-based band. And I was reading this thing about Bernie the other day where at one point Paul McCartney even mentioned him about joining Wings, but it never came to fruition. So like he was known in the music world. I mean, if Paul McCartney thinks about you coming to like, and I only know this because when he passed away, I was reading up on him recently, but I thought that was kind of cool. But I really would have thought they were American. And you were talking about the MTV things. So there's this new documentary on Hulu. You need to watch it, Tim, actually. It's it's about an hour long on MTV. And I found out that the reason all those bands like Whitesnake and a lot of the English, like Billy Idol and stuff, because I did not know that Britain had been doing the whole music video thing for a lot longer than America had. Like apparently music videos, because of Top of the Pops, which makes sense, were so predominant, they were easy to get. They started out, most of the musicians played on MTV. And when they sent out all those I Want My MTV commercials across America to get people to, play it, they said about 97% of the music videos on there were all from England, including Whitesnake. So it makes sense. And see, I had no idea that, first of all, that's how MTV started, and also that Whitesnake was English.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Mickey Moody, Bernie Marsden's sort of guitar companion. I've seen him play in the Red Line in Twickenham, where it plays at a venue I've played many, many times. And he used to play with just local bands. I saw him once in the Red Line in Brentford, again, a venue I used to play with a band at school. I saw him play there. But I mean, I've seen Bernie Marsden play. Now, after David Coverdale came to the United States and he reworked all those songs, and of course another one that Bernie Marsden was a co-writer of was Here I Go Again, which is a huge hit. But again, most people would have not heard of the original sort of blues-based version. They would have heard of the big MTV production version. But after Coverdale came to the United States, the members of the original Whitesnake, so they played together, here and there, but they put together a band called the Company of Snakes later on, sort of in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And what they aimed to do was recreate that early Whitesnake sound. And they had a Swedish singer, and I actually went to see them at the Chiddingfold Club. And I can't remember the guy's name, but it was your classic Whitesnake lineup: Bernie Marsden, Mickey Moody, Neil Murray on the bass. I'm not sure if it was Cozy Powell on drums, but he was some drummer of a similar ilk. And they played all those classic Whitesnake songs. And the Swedish singer they had was just this young, attractive guy in his 20s, very Scandinavian looking. And when he opened his mouth, it sounded exactly like David Coverdale. I don't know how he did it, but every utterance from his mouth was pure Coverdale.
It's because he's from Sweden, Tim. They're like masterminds in music. I don't understand it.
It must be. And the funny thing is that the person I was with at the time was Swedish. And I got her to not heckle him, but just to say funny things to him. And this dude in this weird social club, like in Surrey, playing with this Whitesnake band, was not expecting someone 3 rows from the front to like shout stuff in Swedish to him. And he was like, what?
That's kind of funny. He's probably like, this is the last person I expected to be in the audience, but all right.
Exactly. But anyhow, we celebrate you, Bernie Marsden. You was a fabulous guitar player, songwriter, innovator. You recently even wrote an album, Royalty, with Joe Bonamassa. I mean, legendary player. He had a famous 59 Les Paul called the Beast. It's one of those iconic guitars that people always talk about when they talk about the legendary 59 Les Pauls. So sadly, we had to say goodbye to him this week.
Well, I mean, at least he's got a legacy for everybody to live on, for him to live on through.
Absolutely, but I'm sure he would have preferred to be a little older than 72, which is how old he was when we lost him.
I mean, I don't know that anybody I'm like whatever age it is they pass away, but yeah. All right, we have one more thing for us, Tim.
One more thing. Okay.
One more thing.
As we all know, I have the streaming TV service called Peacock. And I got Peacock for one reason and one reason alone, and that was to watch classic WWF wrestling because I'm still obsessed with it. And I have been obsessed with it for about 2 or 3 years now. There's hundreds of hours of this stuff which I still need to see, and I'm going to watch everything before I cancel Peacock. But as I had Peacock, I thought, well, I wonder what else is on it. And as you know, contemporary TV shows and reality shows and films are not really my thing. Yeah. But I thought, well, I wonder what concerts and music documentaries and music content they have on there. And they actually have a pretty good selection of concerts, music documentaries and stuff like that. So I've been working through the concerts they have on there. I watched a Prince one the other day. I watched Duran Duran. I watched the Prophets of Rage, which is actually like a rap rock band, sort of. A little bit outside my comfort zone. Really enjoyed it, if I'm being honest with you. There's a Paul McCartney concert I watched on there a while ago. So I was going through what they had, and I've got a whole big long list in what they call my stuff of various things I was going through. And it's a toss-up between a few. And then I saw this one. It's like Hall & Oates live at the Sydney, Australia Entertainment Centre from 2022. And I thought, Hall & Oates. I love Hall & Oates. Hall & Oates are absolutely fantastic.
2022?
Yeah. And I I listened to a live album of theirs from a few years back from Dublin.
Okay.
A great concert. Really enjoyed it. Anyhow, this concert from 2022 is absolutely terrible.
Oh, no.
And I tell you for why. Daryl
super villain Daryl.
Oh, yeah. One, he looks like a super villain. He's got dark glasses. He's got a black leather jacket and a T-shirt that says Daryl's House. So he's already promoting his show. The band are great. I don't know who any of the guys are, but they are really, really good. They're probably
all not their fault.
Yeah, they're all Ace session guys. And I don't know. Traditionally, their guitar player was G.E. Smith, who was the guitar player from the Saturday Night Live band. But the guy that they've had in there, he's not G.E. Smith, but Very capable player, plays some really tasty licks, fitted in with the band, looks great. Everything's fine. Hall and Oates, there is zero. When I say zero, think of less than zero chemistry between those two.
I've heard they just hate each other.
Yeah. I think it's Daryl Hall got to the point where he realizes he needs John Oates to go out and make money, but he resents that. And it's very obvious on stage. The pair of them talk over each other all the time. One of them goes to the mic and the other one talks over them and blah, blah, blah.
They didn't try to stage any of this out whatsoever, it sounds like.
No. And there's no interaction with the band at all from Daryl Hall. I like the guitar player in one of the songs. It's a really long solo, and the guitar player walks up to Daryl Hall. And I do that with Bill in Flager Hill. If I'm taking a solo, practice. I might walk up to Chris, or might walk up to Bill, or walk up to Mike. Yeah, and you're putting on a show. You're trying to show a bit of camaraderie. This has absolutely none of that whatsoever.
That poor guitar player.
And then the worst thing about it, all the way through the show, are bursts of feedback. Now, bearing in mind, this is a professionally released concert. This isn't something that someone's capped off YouTube, or even a live performance that was on live TV that may not be completely perfect. This is something that's been put on Peacock, and I'm sure is available on Blu-ray, DVD, something like that. Yeah. And all the way through the concert, there's these little bursts of feedback. And I started looking into it, and people say all the way through the tour, it was exactly the same. So you would think, it's the sound crew or the monitor engineer or whatever. No, I know exactly what happened here. Well, so I listened to a podcast called Rock Solid featuring a guy called Pat Francis. Great podcast. And I recommend you, when you finish listening to ours, maybe you'd like to check that one out too, because it is a great podcast.
It is a good podcast. Tim's introduced me to it.
Yeah. He went to see Hall & Oates on this tour. Obviously, he didn't see them in Sydney, but he saw them in California, out where he lives. Okay. And what happens is that Daryl Hall refuses to go to sound checks. He will have nothing to do with sound checks. So he rolls up on stage. The first song, the sound mix for him is not good. He plays 3 songs, looks annoyed and irritated, puts down his guitar, and then shouts at the sound crew for a few minutes, plays another song, shouts at the monitor engineer, repeat, rinse, repeat.
Telling you, he's a super villain.
Yeah.
But I just had an image, though, Tim, when you first said it, what I was thinking was, I was like, the person who was editing that video was like, it's already terrible enough. Who cares if there's feedback?
It could be. You could mute the channels out, but it's just...
He's like, it's already so bad that no one's going to even... the guy who was like editing that concert was like, I don't even care anymore. I just don't.
Yeah, sometimes you see a live performance, and I know this is going back a bit, but you watch some of the performances from Live Aid. Technically, it's not good. The mix is not good in a few places. There's feedback. There's stuff going on. Instruments not coming through the PA, whatever.
Yeah, not modern day technology, for sure.
But even still, even despite of that, it's a passionate, great performance by a great band having a great time, and the audience is responsive, et cetera, et cetera. This is just flat. It's just that there's
awkward.
It's not good, and this puts me off seeing Hall & Oates. I always thought that if they came through anywhere near I'd see Hall & Oates. I don't want to see that.
Well, and here's my other thing: is how much do those people in the audience pay? Hall & Oates is a pretty large name, and in whatever time you're paying for those tickets, I'd be super disappointed if I paid to see Hall & Oates and that's what I got.
Yeah, it's not good. So. If on your streaming service, wherever you are in the world, and you see Hall & Oates live at the Sydney Entertainment Centre, just give that one a miss.
Or give it a listen for 30 seconds so you get the idea of what Tim's talking about and then hang up.
Yeah, I said he looks disinterested all the way through it, and it's not good.
All he cares about is his stupid TV show. Anyway, now that I digress, we could tell how I truly feel about Daryl Hall. I still think he kind of looks like a lion. He's got cat-like features. Like, they're very, I don't know how to explain it. Like, if you look at him, yes, he looks like a supervillain, but he gives lion vibes. There you go. There's my theory. Now that's all anyone's ever going to see when they see Daryl. I'm going to get a knock on my door. It's going to be like Daryl Hall's personal people coming to get me tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think he has the same security detail that Don Henley does.
Well, apparently he lives in a fortress. But anyway. All right, I guess we can move along.
Yeah, so I understand you've got some this day music histories for us.
Yes. All right. So we'll start with a John Lennon one. So in 2013, on this day in history, a signed copy of John Lennon's whimsical 1964 book in his own rights, and rights spelled like how you write, sold for more than $5,600 after a flurry of 47 bids on eBay. Basically, the whole book is just filled with cheeky quibs and kaleidoscope imagery. The author note says about the awful. And it's like poems and drawings and short stories. And I kind of looked in a little bit more, and honestly, it's very abstract, to put it lightly.
Yeah, well, like a brain dump, if you will. It was all the things that was in his brain at the time, and he just jotted it all down.
Well, you know, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds wasn't about drugs, Tim.
No, it wasn't. It was a picture that Julian Lennon did at school, so I understand.
All right, so another one, and they have, Tim has talked about this duo before. In 1995, Carly Simon and James Taylor performed live together in front of 10,000 fans in Martha's Vineyard. It was the first time they appeared live on stage since 1979. The former couple played their own solo sets before combining in an effort to raise money for agriculture.
Well, there we go. They were putting aside their differences for a good cause.
And for those who don't know, Tim has said it many times, You're So Vain is potentially about James Taylor.
She sold that off. Who it's about, she sold it to someone. I thought it was Warren Beatty, but I'm not sure.
I've heard James Taylor, but I've also heard Warren Beatty. The point being is they were in a relationship, they broke up, and they put their differences aside to raise money. Also, I'm sure they got a paycheck.
Well, when you're in the stinking rich category, does it matter?
It's true. I mean, it's not like Carly Simon and James Taylor are really hurting for money.
No, it was like the time when Mark Knopfler and Eric Clapton went on tour together. They did like a big world tour. And Mark Knopfler decided not to take a salary for the tour because he said at some point, it's millionaires invoicing millionaires. I'm just doing it for fun.
Well, there's some really famous country singer. I don't know what his name was. If you Google him, and you'll find it. They offered for him to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl, and he turned down the check. He said, "I'll do it for free." But I mean, he's already a millionaire, so it's like,
sure.
I mean, it's all, yeah. I get what he's probably trying to say, sing the national anthem for free, but I'm like, you're already a millionaire. What does it matter to you?
Exactly.
All right. So in 1992, Reading Festival, which I'm assuming Reading Festival is in Reading, England, right, Tim? Is that right?
Well, obviously, we would say Reading.
Okay. Well, I'm American, so we'll go with Reading. Apparently, this was one of the most famous I can't talk. One of the more famous festivals. I wanted to say concert, but it's festival. Nirvana was their last time they played in the UK. Apparently, Kurt Cobain took stage in a wheelchair, pushed by music journalist Everett True. Paranoid, basically, it brought up speculations about his mental health, and people were paranoid something was going to happen to him, and then it kind of did. So that's why this one is the most famous, is because it was the last one that Nirvana did. And I might have been the last concert period, but it was the last one in the UK. Also, apparently, bassist for Maniac Street Preachers, which I'm not familiar with, Tim might be. Nicky Wire smashed his guitar into and hurled it into the crowd, hitting a security guard who needed 16 stitches.
Yeah,
security guard.
Yeah, you don't want to do that, especially if you're working security detail at the Reading Festival. You don't want some wooden shard thrown at your head.
So it sounds like 1992 was an interesting concert, if you will. And then just on a positive note, so we don't end on that, in 1986, Steve Winwood's Higher Love was number one in the UK and in the US on this day, which I absolutely love that song. And I have a big love for the Whitney Houston version she did. And then there's a remake from this DJ who does mashups on YouTube, that his version of Higher Love is so good. I listen to it all the time. Yeah,
some of that Steve Winwood solo stuff is really good.
I have a very soft spot in my heart for that one. There we go.
Okay.
And all that happened in this day in music history. There you go.
Fantastic. Well, good deal. Well, I tell you what, this week is my turn to pick the topic. Now, as I said on not the last episode, the episode before, my episode then was a two-parter. So this is part 2. Now, in my previous episode, I spoke about my premium shuffle playlist, and we shuffled my premium shuffle. This week, we're going to move on to another playlist that I use almost every day. And this playlist is called Driving Rock. Okay. So what I do is that when I leave work, with my head full of work things, and I want to decompress for my 16-minute commute or whatever it is, it's not very long, really. I put on this playlist called Driving Rock. And as before, as I work through Spotify and I find things I like to listen to, I put all the songs I like or sort of like going premium shuffle. But anything that's more rock-based goes in Driving Rock. So when I get in the car, I plug in my phone to my Apple CarPlay, I press a little button on the steering wheel, and I tell it to shuffle Driving Rock. And then what does it do? It shuffles the Driving Rock playlist. Now, wow. Just to keep, because it does that, because it's like having Kit in your car and you can tell it to do things, and it's very exciting.
We're living in the future, y'all.
We are indeed. So let me just give you some stats from Driving Rock. Currently, it has 1,434 songs. And if you played it from beginning to end, it's 115 hours and 27 minutes.
I wonder how many times around the world you can go in 100 and however many hours that was.
115 hours and 27 minutes. I have absolutely no idea. Now, as we know, Premium Shuffle has 6,000, 7,000 songs in it. This is a lot less because it's a little more distilled.
Yeah, you've got it a little bit more cultured on this one, I'm sure.
There we are. So I thought what I would do, as before, I'm going to spin the wheel, and
you
shuffle.
Spin dice, Tim.
I mean, I don't have any here, but if I had a set of die, I would maybe spin them just for fun, but I don't.
Do people spin dice? I thought they just kind of threw them. Is that a term?
Maybe I said that wrong.
Why would you spin dice?
Well, but then you spin them in your hand before you
shake them. Anyway, we're spinning dice and we're throwing wheels. What next?
Well, I will tell you, Joy, it's been a long day. Then when I got home, I walked for 2.5 miles. So, I'm just still decompressing. There we are.
I mean, in last week's episode, I mistake poor MC Hammer for Vanilla Ice. So it happens.
Well, there we are. Well, okay. Well, so here we are. I'm about to switch my premium shuffle on, and I'm going to shuffle to a track, and we will see where it lands. Okay, well, unsurprisingly, the first song it comes to is a Queen song.
Wow, shocking.
And this is from the album Queen on Fire Live at the Bowl, which is from Live at Milton Keynes, which I believe was 1982. And this is a live version of Now I'm Here.
I like that one as a song to drive to.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a really good driving song. I mean, even though the beginning part is talking about standing. I mean, classic Queen, I think is a great way to start Tim's list off. That's all I can really say. Yeah,
and as I said, I'm shuffling this. Now, the interesting thing about shuffle on Spotify, and I don't know if you're aware of this, it's not true shuffle.
No, yeah, it's not.
No, because if you put all these songs in something like Winamp or iTunes or VLC and hit shuffle, it will give you a true randomized shuffle. Spotify is not a true randomized shuffle. They do funny stuff where if it's things you've listened to recently or things that you have a lot of in your library, it puts that near the top.
It puts together. So songs that are similar. So let's say you're listening to Joan Jett and you hit shuffle, you're going to get 3 Joan Jett songs, maybe some other female heart type thing. At least that's what it does to me.
Yeah, and it depends what's in your library and depends what you listen to and what your favorites are. I mean, my tastes are pretty eclectic, but it often comes back to similar artists.
Fair. I mean, humans are creatures of habit, so they're playing on that.
Exactly. Okay, so the next song, I've just hit shuffle again. And the next song that it's come up with, this time, ZZ Top, and this is from another live album, Live in Texas, and this is a live version of "Gimme All Your Loving."
Well, you were talking about people with classic beards, so it's very on brand. I'm sure the beards love ZZ Top, as you could imagine. Now, I once on one of our episodes we talked about, and I don't remember, or maybe it was on one of our Zooms with our friends in the UK, but they one time played a concert, ZZ Top did, in Texas, and nobody came besides one guy, and one of the members of ZZ Top, I don't know which one it was, just bought the guy a coat because he was in the audience, and that was the only guy there the entire time.
I mean, I've been there. I've played gigs to with sort of less people in the audience than there is the band.
I have this like memory, and I cannot for the life of me put into like, I can't remember exactly who this local band was. There was this local band that came to the city that I'm from, Independence in Grayson County in Virginia, for a July 4th festival. And they were a little kind of pop punk local band. I want to say they had some really cliche name like The Strings or something. Brandy, if you're listening and you can remember the name of them, please send it to me because that's been bugging me. And for some reason, they were actually so good. I loved them, got into their music really largely after this. Me and my twin sister were the only two people in the audience besides one other girl. And I remember I felt bad because they were so good. But sadly, in Southwest Virginia, if you're not bluegrass, nobody seems to notice. And so I remember sitting there with them. Me and my twin sister were cheering them on for the whole show. The other girl was cheering them on too. She knew them from something else. And as Hillary said, she was there. She wasn't even local. And after the show, we went, they come off stage. They sat down and talked with us for a little bit. I remember we walked off. We went and got snow cones with these guys and watched the fireworks. And I still remember to this day, I felt so bad for them because they were so good.
Do you know what that's like? I think it was the first time or second time Hannah and I went to Vegas. It was maybe first or second time, I can't remember. But we went to if you've ever been to Vegas, all of the casinos are on the Strip. I mean, there's a downtown area as well, but mostly it's like a 5-mile road, and all those massive, huge casinos that you see on TV are all on that one big strip. And one of them is the Paris. Now, the Paris has a half-size replica of the Eiffel Tower on it. And they were going to build a 1-for-1 replica of the Eiffel Tower. And the only thing that stopped them is it was too close to the airport. But so they have like a half-scale size replica of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
And they have a half-size replica of the Arc de Triomphe, and you go in it, and it's all very Paris themed, and et cetera, et cetera. But we was in the Paris, and they have a little area in there for a band, and we was in there one evening, just walking around the casino. I think it was the first or second night we were there, and there was a band called Pop Culture. And they were just a cover band, but they were really, really good. They had a lady singing, they had a guy singing, and the actual backing band was really good. And as with a lot of these casinos, you have to be very mindful of the volume. And the Caesars, I think, own Paris, and it has to be under a certain amount of decibels.
Oh, okay, that makes sense, I guess.
So everyone was running direct and all this kind of stuff, and the volume was quite controlled, as it would be, but they were a really good band. So we watched their set, and we caught the last half hour of it. And then the next night when we was out, we thought, well, I wonder if Pop Culture is still there. And they're still there. So the next night we go and catch their set again. And I think this went on for 3 nights or 4 nights. Not we're spending the whole year, because they finished by 8 or 9 or something, but and then by the 4th night, I think when they started, we were the only people in the audience, and the band recognized us, and they were pointing at us and waving. And then in the break, I went and talked to them, and I gave a guitar pick to the guitar player, and I don't know, it was just, of all your entertainment options in Vegas, of which there are thousands, we chose to watch a bar band in the Paris 3 or 4 nights running, but it was great.
But see, that's the way I felt about this. And that memory just stays so. And I remember, for some reason, even though Grayson County is tiny, they have really good fireworks. And I distinctly remember sitting there talking with the guy. He goes, wow, for a small town, you guys have really good fireworks. Well, eating a snow cone. Those are great memories, though. I still wonder whatever happened to that band. I can't remember their name.
I sometimes wonder what happened to pop culture. I've tried to Google them, but the thing is, the name is so generic.
Yeah.
You can never find them. And I mean, this was early 2000s, I suppose. So it's almost 20 years ago at this point. I have some really poor quality cell phone footage of pop culture, and they were a really good band.
Well, have you went on like YouTube and typed in like pop culture Vegas hair strip or something?
Yeah, I have. And guess what comes up? The 2 videos I uploaded.
Of course. I've had that happen. What was it the other day? I was looking, because I follow you on YouTube, obviously, and I was trying to find something from Elton John. I think it was, and your Elton John videos kept popping up, and I was like, not this one, not this one. And every once in a while, our version of Creep will show up on my playlist, and I instantly, before even the first note, I'm like, skip. I can't hear it again. Anyway, what's the next song?
So the next song on the Driving Rock playlist, hit on shuffle, I just clicked it, and this is Pearl Jam, and this is the song Once.
So what are your thoughts on Pearl Jam? I have mixed feelings about Pearl Jam as a whole. And I know they're really, some bands, people are super into them.
Well, my thoughts on Pearl Jam is the album 10, from top to bottom, is flawless. Every track on it is a winner. But I don't think they ever recreated that greatness ever again. Like, Versus is okay. And there's some other albums of theirs where there's a handful of tracks that really get your attention. But I don't think anything's ever as good as 10. And 10 has Jeremy and Black and Once on it, and all those tracks are on it. But I don't know. I don't think they ever reached the same level of greatness. I'm sure there are thousands of Pearl Jam fans who'll tell me I'm completely wrong. But for me, if I'm going to listen to Pearl Jam, I pull 10 out, and I'm never disappointed.
And I kind of sit in the camp of, I know, like, there are some diehard, and I know one of Tim's friends is a pretty huge Pearl Jam fan, and I know personally, and there's some people who are obsessed with them. But I kind of have this issue where I feel of them as a lot of their music is radio filler. Kind of like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like in that vein. Not that they're similar in bands. I'm just saying, like, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I feel like a lot of their music is radio filler. And that's how I've always felt about Pearl Jam, besides the few superstar songs we all know. And so I guess there's probably somebody screaming at me right now going, you don't understand. But it's just not, it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just...
Okay.
One really strong, great album that's timeless and full of classics, and then
So I was listening. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, but I say that's just me and on Pearl Jam.
I was going through like some TikToks or something, and there's somebody complaining about a modern day song that got canceled or something. I don't know what the song was, but then this guy responded and was like, it was that song. I don't remember if you remember the song Pumped Up Kicks by Foster the People. And it's basically about school shootings, if I'm being completely honest with you. And he's like, oh, that song is banned, but this one's still on the radio. And in my mind, I went, well, no one tell him about Jeremy.
Exactly.
I was like, it's not a new thing by any stretch to sing songs about, serious things. But anyway, I just thought that was funny because, it was some younger kid on TikTok saying it. I was like, well, no one tell him about Jeremy.
Do you want to know an interesting fact about Jeremy?
What's that?
The actually not the guitar player, the bass player is playing a 12-string Hamer bass guitar on that track.
I would have never thought that.
So like on a 12-string guitar, you don't play 12 independent strings. You press your fingers down in pairs. They're tuned in octaves. So you play like a regular shape. Instead of holding down one string, you're holding down 2 strings. And that's how a 12-string guitar works.
So the chords are generally the same. You're just holding down 2 strings.
Yeah. And an 8-string bass is a thing that's existed for a while, which uses the same principle, where you hold down 2 bass strings instead of 1. On this track, this Hamer bass, instead of holding down 2 strings, you're holding down 3 strings.
So I'm going to say something stupid. With my very baseline knowledge of playing chords on a ukulele, what is the benefit? Is it just a richer sound? Like how does it benefit the sound?
It's a very much richer sound. I'm not sure about the 2 bass strings, but one of the strings of the 3 is tuned an octave higher. So at the very beginning of the song, that dung, 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 bing.
So it
bing,
almost
bing.
gives like a harmony between the layering.
Almost, yeah, like in octaves.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's kind of how you harmonize. Like if I sing an A and you sing an A and I'm higher and you're low, you know what I mean? Like it's the same
Hmm.
kind of concept. So I guess that would kind of make it sound more layered. That's a
It
very
does.
simplified way of saying it, but
Yeah, I mean, these days you could do it with studio trickery and effects processors and stuff, but maybe in the early '90s that stuff was not available. But that's how you get the sound of the intro of Jeremy. It's a 12-string Hamer bass.
it makes my hands kind of hurt trying to hold down three strings at a time.
It makes the tendons in my fingers become inflamed. You just mentioning
Thinking
it.
about it. I was so like when I was first learning to strum, like because you're not using a pick of my ukulele. I showed Tim my little like I had like blisters. I had so many open spots on the side of my finger. I still have scars, so I can't even imagine like holding those down. Oh God, no, thank you.
I mean, I went from using 10-gauge guitar strings to 9-gauge guitar strings about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And in reality, it makes zero difference to the sound. People will tell you should have heavy strings on your guitar because it supposedly sounds better. In reality, it makes practically no difference. And it's just a player preference thing. Just give me light gauge strings. They're easy to press down. They don't hurt your fingers as much and you can bend the strings without any problems.
I still remember, Tim, the first time I tried to bar a fret, this finger, I thought it was going to fall off.
Yep.
Like that is the most painful thing to do. Like I seriously think back and I was like, how are they doing this? Now it comes naturally, but the first time you do it, that is such a weird feeling.
Yes, and I remember very early on in my guitar playing career, you learn C and D and G, and then you start getting into the realm of F, and you're like, uh-oh.
Yep, F was like the G was the what's the chord that's basically like a backwards G?
Well, you have a G and a G minor are very similar, or a C.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say, I think it's the G on the ukulele. It's basically like a backwards G to do a G minor. But I remember like the first time I tried to do that, I was like, this is so difficult. And then I was like, after you finally get it, you just get it. It's weird. Because like once your fingers finally learn it, they don't forget it either. Like as long as you do general practice, Tim, like my fingers naturally know where all the chords are. And you think in some way, which should have made sense to me because it was the same way when I was learning the piano. But when it was just interesting as an adult to see that play out because I hadn't learned to play an instrument again in so long. I was like, I'm never going to get this. Oh, no, I got it.
Thing is, for me, I've played guitar for so long, like when I was growing up, my fingers bend in a funny shape now because I play. Only Joy can see this. Now you see that hand. That's not my fretting hand. That is my fretting hand. Can you see how my fingers bend back more on that hand?
Look at my hands, Tim. I have the same thing, but mine's probably from where I was learning to play the piano at such a young age. But I don't know. I have very curved fingers, so I get you.
Yeah, mine are especially curved on my left hand. But yeah, that was not helpful for anyone listening to this audio
podcast. They're like, great. Our Instagram will post this one tip. Let's just put up a picture of your hand.
Hand up like that.
People will be like, what in the world? But yeah. Anyway, what's the next song, I guess?
All right. So the next song, I just clicked next one through the playlist. Now, this is by Van Halen. Now, as everyone knows, I'm a big Van Halen fan. I like both eras of Van Halen. Van Halen and, as they say, Van Hagar. Van Hagar is probably my favorite of the two eras, if I'm being completely honest. And as we mentioned in a previous episode, they're remastering and re-releasing all of the Van Hagar era stuff soon. In fact, the box set comes out on October the 6th. But those are your two eras of Van Halen. But no, there is a third era of Van Halen, a third era of Van Halen that nobody really speaks about anymore. This is from 1998, and this is from the album Van Halen 3. Now, you're thinking, Van Halen 3, what's that? And guess what? It's with a different lead singer. Dave was out, Sammy was out, but guess who was the lead singer of Van Halen?
I want to say somebody random like Axl Rose, but I don't know.
No, it would be Gary Cherone, who's formerly known as the singer from Extreme.
Random.
Yeah, they released one album, Van Halen 3, and then they went on a huge world tour. I had tickets for that world tour. They were supposed to come to London at Wembley Arena, and I think Alex Van Halen had some kind of neck injury, and they cancelled the dates. So I never got to see that incarnation of Van Halen, sadly. Now, this album polarizes the fans. And by polarize, I mean most fans hate it.
So some weird niche market of people or something.
Yeah, there are some good tracks on it, but it's not classic Van Halen. Many people have said it's like an Eddie Van Halen solo project that happens to have Gary Cherone singing on it. And there's actually a track on it called How Many Say I, which the album closes with, which has Eddie Van Halen singing on it, and it is appallingly bad.
Random.
But that's not. Yeah, but that's
that
not
why they hate it?
It just sounds rough.
Oh,
but
okay.
the track that we're going to talk about is called The One I Want, which is from Van Halen 3.
Yeah.
And it's actually a pretty good rock song. It's no Hot for Teacher. It's no Why Can't This Be Love. It's no Pound Cake or Runaround. But it's okay. I said, I as the years roll on, I appreciate Van Halen 3 more, though it's not 1984 or Balance or OU812 or anything like that.
I love how there was that much lead up, and I completely forgot you hadn't even said the name of the song. I'm just so enthralled with Tim's story that I'm like, well, but why do they hate the album? And then I was like, oh yeah, he never even told us what song.
yeah. The song is One I Want. There was a single released off it called Without You, which actually had a video as well, which is it's okay. But this album flopped hugely.
So is it hard to find then? Like, is it one of those albums like you would be pressed to find it in a thrift store right now or something?
No, I mean, it's on all the streaming services. And I've never come across it in a thrift shop, though it wouldn't surprise me if you did. I mean, I have a copy because when I started rebuilding and recreating my physical music collection I used to have, I just went and bought a copy off eBay or something like that, just so I'd have a copy of it. But it's an interesting listen. It's not classic Van Halen, and it doesn't sound anything like Extreme.
Tim, there's a cat that's staring at the back of your head right now.
Yeah, that's the lady. She.
I got distracted because of the kitty.
So the where we record, which is my office and music room, we designated this as ladies' safe room when we first adopted her. Because if you're going to adopt a cat, as I said before, you don't want to release your cat into your main house. You want to put them in a safe room, get their food, get their box, get their toys, and leave them in the room and let them decompress for a few days, and then go in to see them and play with them and stuff. So we had the lady. Well, her shelter name was Piper, but we call her Lady or the Lady because she seemed to tell us that was her name.
Fair enough.
So we still have her food and her box in this room. And normally when I record, when we had our little friend Jack, I used to close the door because he was very vocal and I didn't necessarily need a third wheel on the podcast. But so I had to have the door open in case the lady wanted her food or use her box. So she's been in and out and she has been squeaking a bit, but I think the Zoom noise reduction has completely removed it. But you're right. Behind me is a sofa bed, as you've probably all seen from my videos. And she's sitting on the top of that, just staring at me.
Right at the back. I made eye contact with her when Tim was talking, and it was like she knew. Very pretty, very cute.
Yeah, she's a good cat. She's coming around. She has been exploring the main house. She's comfortable with the upstairs. She comes downstairs, and she has been playing a bit downstairs, but it still freaks her out. And the heat pump will kick in, or we'll close the door, or we'll. Like this morning, I got my cereal box and I shook the bran flakes in the bowl, and that freaked her out, and she ran away. But it's just each day she's just getting a little bit better, and we hope either this week or next week we're going to put all of her food and box downstairs, and then I can have my office back.
Well, there we go. She's a very cute guest, though. You got a nice roommate.
There we are. Well, thank you.
All right. What's our next song?
Okay. So this one, this is Def Leppard from their album On Through the Night, which is a very early Def Leppard album. I think it actually may be their first album, I think. And this is the song Hello America.
I mean, that's probably, I will say, if any Def Leppard album, that's the one I know. If it's the first one, I know that one pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, Hysteria is the one that gets all of the press, as it were. And then you also have the album Pyromania, which was, again, another Robert John Mutt Lange production. But On Through the Night has got some really good tracks on it, and this being one of them. Unsurprisingly, this track did very well in the United States.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that album did well in the United States. But it's definitely one that I think of I'm pretty sure it was their debut album. And then there is the song On Through the Night as well, right? It's self-titled or whatever. Well, not after the artist, but after the song, which was a pretty popular song too. So. Yeah.
And I said, I like some Def Leppard. It seems people get stuck on the Hysteria era Def Leppard, but a lot of the earlier stuff is good. And I think in a lot of ways, Pyromania is better than Hysteria. I think some of the songs are better. But of course, when you've got the juggernaut, which is Hysteria, it's hard to come off that train, as it were.
And for some reason, for those who can't see us right now, Zoom thought I was giving Tim's a thumbs up and put the thumbs up on my screen for a minute, so it really liked your point. Zoom agreed with you.
our robot overlords from your ChatGPT episode have decided that they like it.
Well, I mean, they did crack a joke, so they started to take over. If you haven't heard that episode, you need to go back. Def Leppard is another band that still shocks me. And when I was younger, you could have knocked me over with a pin. I would have assumed they were American.
Yeah, I think it's the way that Joe Elliott sings. He has that kind of twang in his voice. Mm-hmm. And they're big in the UK, but I think they found their home in the United States.
And maybe it's just because hair metal or hair bands, whatever you want to call them, hair rock, I don't know. The 80s that was just really popular in America. So maybe that's why I just assume they're American. And, we Americans are known for putting on a show. So maybe I just assumed. I don't know.
I do recommend, if you go on YouTube, someone has uploaded the whole show. So from that Hysteria era is the live concert, Def Leppard live concert, In the Round, In Your Face. And it's from Denver, Colorado. And they were doing a big arena tour at the time. And they were very big pioneers of having the circular stage in the middle of the arena. And
which is always a cool concert.
Yeah, and that is such a good concert. It's all of the Hysteria stuff, and we've got Pyromania stuff on there, and the band sounds great. And of course, this is with Steve Clark. He was their original guitarist because Phil Collin came in later, but he's on this concert too. But it's with Steve Clark on guitar. Steve Clark has got his Les Paul with a strap ridiculously long. It's literally around his ankles. You got Phil Collin has got a Jackson guitar with like pointy headstock. I mean,
Phil Collin, not Collins, everybody.
Yeah, Collin.
Just to clarify.
And that's before he started bodybuilding and everything. But I mean,
before Tim developed, Tim has a theory. He says that Phil Collin is the most attractive man.
Yeah, I think in the realm of like men in their 50s. I mean, he looks healthy, he looks good, and his physique is amazing. And as I said to Hannah, I've seen various concerts of Def Leppard since they did a Vegas residency, and he's either got like a waistcoat or some kind of flowing shirt on, and he's bare chested. And I said to Hannah, I said, if my physique looked as good as that, I wouldn't wear a shirt either.
I mean, that's fair.
Like you go into one of these shops that say no shirt, no shoes, no service. You go into like, I don't know, a 7-Eleven, and they take one look at you and go, "You're fine, sir," and you come.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, in Radford, Tim, I have seen people shirtless in this 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
But so I have a question for you. We were talking about the kind of like, the concert in the rounds. What concerts have you seen that are like set up like that? Because I really like when they're in the circle like that.
I don't think I've ever seen a concert in the round.
Backstreet Boys, the D-Day tour was like that because it was in the arena and they did it in the middle and then it was around and you were up. Yeah, there was floor seats, but generally most people were around.
Yeah, and Metallica I know are currently touring with a huge stadium tour where they're in the round like that.
Yeah, it's so fun. I will say, if you've never climbed the stairs all the way to the top because you can't afford the good seats, if you prepare yourself mentally because it's vascular cardio to get all the way to the top of those, but it's worth it.
As I said, it's like when I saw Paul McCartney, we was in the worst possible seats, and it was in the very, very, very top row.
I saw the Backstreet Boys, I was in the very top row. And then when we saw Trans-Siberian Orchestra, where I told you I was almost blinded, we bought those tickets last minute. and they were in John Paul Jones or whatever stadium. I'm sure you've heard of that one. And we were all the way. I mean, and it was straight up, Tim. Like it felt like you were going up a ladder by the time. And with me, I always get scared when I'm in those because I'm like, don't fall forward, don't fall forward. Whatever you do, don't fall forward. Because if you fall forward, you're just gonna keep falling until you reach, I don't know, your broken neck.
Crikey.
But think about it. You know what I'm talking about, Tim? Like how steep some of those get. Like
yeah, absolutely.
If one person falls forward, you're going to take out 3 people on your way down, and it's going to be painful because it's just so steep. And now you know what one of my fears is.
There we are. I just have to. If I go to a concert with you, we will not get seating way up there.
Well, and then I also think about like, what if one person drops their phone and just hits somebody else in the head?
Oh, goodness me.
I'd just be like, and they'd be like, did someone drop their phone? No. I don't know who did that. Whose phone is that? I've never seen a phone like that. I don't own a phone. Oh, really? It says your name right on the. Nope, never heard of them.
Nope, not me. Nothing to do with me.
Or like your soda. You just drop it, it goes flying down.
And then you're just like, yeah, I'm just, yeah, that wasn't me.
Anyway, that's something I think about while you're in those tours. So what's the next song, I guess?
Okay, so I've just hit the shuffle button again. And this one is one that we came up with when I got you to listen to a bunch of music. So I think you'll be familiar with this.
Okay.
This is from the album Machine Head. This is Deep Purple, and the song is Highway Star.
Yes, that's actually one that I knew before, but that whole Deep Purple album was kind of an experience for me. So it's not like a band that I'm seeking out in any way, but they have such a like cult following.
They do, and they're still touring. And as I think we came up in music news a little while ago, the original guitarist was Richie Blackmore. And he left in I think it was the early 90s or mid 90s, he left the band. And he, incredibly unpleasant character to deal with from what I understand, made some amazing and iconic music. Great guitar player, such a unique sort of neoclassical kind of style, which later on influenced Yngwie Malmsteen. And, you know, if you hear Richie play, and it couldn't be anyone but Richie. He's one of those icons, but like completely unpleasant to deal with by all accounts. And the band really hated him. So he storms off tour, and then Joe Satriani filled in for a little while. And then the guitarist Steve Morse replaced him. And they had an incredibly long and fruitful career with Steve Morse. They would go out and tour, and they released albums. His style is completely different from Richie Blackmore's. Yeah, he's more of a kind of rock fusion player, but somehow it worked, and they wrote some really good music. But Steve Morse's wife is suffering with really bad health problems, and he wanted to look after her. So he decided to retire from the band and retire from touring, and he would just play occasional gigs somewhere near his house. But he really wanted to focus his attentions on caring for his wife. So he left the band. And now they have a guitar player called Simon McBride. Simon McBride was Ian Gillan's like solo band guitarist. So he already knows all the material. So they've just gone back out on tour, and they're out touring with Simon McBride, and apparently they're working on a new album as well. I mean, all these guys are almost 80 years old.
How old are they?
And they're still out there getting it done. I mean, you have to hand it to them.
I mean, once a musician, always a musician. Another English band, Tim. I'm starting to believe you're trying to follow your roots here or something.
Well, I mean, I'm just doing the shuffle, and I'm just seeing what's coming up.
Doing the shuffle. I know, it's just funny because like almost every band has been an English band so far.
Well, let me buck that trend with the next one.
Fair enough.
So this one is Foreigner, and this is a song Double Vision.
Oh, what album is that on?
That's a very good point. I was just looking at it, and I couldn't see what the cover was.
I kind of remember that song, but I can't really place it. I mean, Foreigner is a huge band in America, so it's not like most of our audience is going to know.
Unsurprisingly, from the album Double Vision.
Well, I guess I could have figured that one out.
Also, this album has on it the song Hot Blooded.
Oh, so like their most famous song.
Exactly.
Which is still my favorite story of me and Tim performing that during COVID, but we don't have to tell it again.
Hot Blooded, which currently has 80 million plays on Spotify, which means they made $1.50.
Oh gosh, that's crazy to think about because isn't it like 0.002 cents or something
Yeah,
stupid?
they probably made $20,000 off that or something.
Oh gosh. But I mean, I don't Foreigner is like one of those bands that like I can't think of a more popular band in the 80s in America.
Yeah, they're one of those iconic 80s pop rock type bands that I'm sure if you was around in the 80s, you couldn't escape them.
Were they popular in the UK?
Ish. Not really, I suppose. I mean, it's hard for me to say because, as you know, my musical upbringing was pretty much top 40 pop. So if they were a big thing, I don't really remember that.
Interesting. Well, Tim, you bucked the English trend. I guess we have time for two more songs.
Yeah, let's do two more. So let's just hit the old shuffle button. Oh, this is Rammstein. And this is the song Nebel, Nebel. Now, I'm not super familiar with the work of Rammstein, but I have this album that I bought in a thrift shop, and it's this album, the album Mother. And I played it, and I really liked it. I don't really know what the tracks are, but all of them are kind of full on and like good stuff. So I put all of them on my Driving Rock playlist. And the thing is about Rammstein, it's sung in German, and it doesn't really matter.
So the amount of times my husband has just said, du hast. It's a lot. He's big on, I don't think he has any clue what they're playing, what they're saying, or what they're really going on about, but he loves Rammstein. So I've heard it quite a lot in my house.
I remember that the guitarist from Rammstein for a period of time used to play an Ernie Ball Music Man guitar like I do. Yeah. And they were touring Southern California. And they stopped by the Ernie Ball Music Man factory because they just, for guitar setups and fretwork and stuff like that. It's a common thing that you would do. So they took their instruments into Ernie Ball, and all of the hardware was completely corroded. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what exactly do you do with this? And they said, oh, yeah, we have like water cannons on stage.
I mean, it adds up.
Exactly. So they replaced all the hardware, but it was just like, we've never seen a bridge as corroded as this. What went on?
There's something you're not telling us. Yeah, I don't know much about them either. Besides Charlie, like I said, he got one of their albums when he was younger, and there was no going back. It's pretty cool sounding, though. It sounds really fun, and they're good musicians. Yeah,
it's good music, and I do like it. It's just I don't know it well enough to know all the individual different tracks, but certainly all of those songs you put that comes up on the old Driving Rock list on the way home, and I'm like, yeah, this is good. I like this.
Fair enough. That's kind of how I feel about them too. All right, what's your final song, Tim?
Okay, my final song from my Driving Rock playlist.
Like poor me trying to read that.
Yeah, talking is hard sometimes.
Hard is talking.
Exactly. Well, this is by Kiss, an artist who I've been really on a discovery this year. Kiss is an artist I've been aware of, and I knew a few tracks. But since the invention of this Spotify machine, I've been trying to listen to a Kiss album every week just to familiarize myself, because in theory I should really like it, and I do, but it just was never on my radar whatsoever.
Yeah.
So my whole year has been like a Kiss album a week, and I'm working through it. So this one added to the Driving Rock list. This is a classic. This is from the album Destroyer, and this is Detroit Rock City.
Well, I mean, that, like you said, is classic Kiss. I don't know if I ever really sought out Kiss, but I feel like in America, they're just everywhere. So I know like all their songs. I did remember one time when I was little, I went to a band. I was probably like 13, 14. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was like a Kiss impersonation band that they dressed up as all the characters and performed. Mm-hmm. And then I vaguely remember spending a night with my parents watching that. But I've never really seen Kiss. I bought tickets to see Kiss last year before. Something happened and they canceled the concert. Thankfully, I got my money back. Sadly, I didn't get to go. So if they come back around, I'm definitely going this time.
Well, they're on the end of the road tour, and it's supposedly their last ever, but I don't know.
They've said that like 10 times.
Yeah, the thing is with Kiss, and you have to admire Kiss for this.
Yeah,
is their complete crass commercialism of their product.
That's what they said they're doing. They're very open about it.
Yeah, they are businessmen, moneymakers first, and a band second. And whatever you want in the realm of Kiss is available for sale. You want all the instruments and drums and stuff that was played on stage that night. That's for sale. You want Gene Simmons to come to your house and deliver you Kiss albums. Call his people. There's a price for that. You want to meet them before the show. There's a price for that too. You want, I don't know, Paul Stanley to drive down to the grocery store with you. Call his people. There'll be a price for that. They are, you know, you have to admire that pure sort of commercialism of their product. Also, they're one of the few acts that you can get on CD, LP, and cassette. Because again, they think they might sell some cassettes, so let's make cassettes.
I mean, and that's kind of how I imagine it. You know, everybody makes the joke about the Kiss casket and stuff, but that's very small. Everything they have is for sale. I went to high school with this guy who was obsessed with Kiss. I mean, and I still see him. He works in the Christiansburg Target, but he's like, his name's Jason. He was, if you're listening to the podcast, Jason, shout out. But I mean, he had everything, Tim. He would open his school locker and there'd be like little dolls. There'd be like a poster. There would be like everything part in the back of his car. He had there was so much merchandise that he was able to buy because that's how they marketed it. It's almost like WWE wrestling or something.
Joy. It has an F. It's a federation.
What was WWE then?
WWE is what they called it when the World Wildlife Fund told them they couldn't have the trademark anymore. Are you aware of what went down with that?
No. I have no idea. See how much I know about wrestling? I don't even know the name.
Vince McMahon's father had a regional wrestling promotion in Connecticut called the WWWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And then Vince McMahon bought that from him. And then what he did is he went around all the other local promotions around the area in the country, buying them all up. And eventually he had this big wrestling company, took one of the W's off it, decided to call it the World Wrestling Federation.
Okay.
And it operated more or less exclusively in the United States in the 70s and early 80s. And then he had this grand idea that he was going to take it from a sideshow attraction to be in this huge thing where he made all of the characters like cartoon characters. That he had this vision of how it was going to be in merchandise and action figures and all this kind of stuff. The problem being is the WWF trademark was owned by the World Wildlife Fund.
The one that has the panda on the front.
Yeah. And they had like a gentleman's agreement that Vince could use it because it was already established as long as it didn't leave the United States. If it stayed within the United States as a trademark, he could still have WWF and they would have the World Wildlife Fund. But what happened is this got absolutely massive and it became international. It was in Europe. It was in the UK. It was in Australia. It was huge in Japan, absolutely massive in Japan. And of course, the World Wildlife Fund were not very happy about this. So they took them to court over it. And I think it was late 90s or early 2000s, Vince had to give up the trademark of WWF. And they decided what to call it. So WWF was a wholly owned subsidiary of his parent company, which was called Titan Sports. So they decided to do away with Titan Sports and they decided to do away with WWF, World Wrestling Federation, and brand the whole thing WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment.
Okay. Well, there's where I got WWE from, everybody.
Yeah. And in fact, it's now the company is just the acronym. World Wrestling Entertainment doesn't even exist as a company. They actually dropped that, so it's just WWE. But for me, it sounds weird because I grew up with WWF, and
sense.
all I watch on Peacock is WWF. So when I hear people say WWE, it's like in my brain it sounds wrong.
It's kind of like Blink 182.
Yeah.
I can't hear Blink 182, which, by the way, for our listeners, was discussed. And if you give it a Google, apparently it is. The band says Blink 182, but it is a thing in the UK, as Tim pointed out, that they say Blink 182.
Blink 182, that would be correct.
I don't know. Because then it makes me want to just like every time I find a number band, I'm going to ask Tim, how do you say it? Just to see if there's a difference. All right. Well, I think that was everything. Do you have anything for the people?
Just be extra kind to everyone you meet.
I agree with Tim. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
To remind me of another day to love.